Hi, Roy. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Warren. How are you?
I'm really well here up in snowy, wonderful Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. How are you?
Well, believe it or not, we got the first snowfall here in New Jersey. I mean, the first significant snowfall. We got about 4 inches last night. And it times out because it is the winter solstice and the shortest day of the year. So, with that said, welcome winter.
Well, I tell you, and we have for you having your first snowfall. Boy, I'm envious because we have got dumped on this year. So
Uh,
I'm looking forward to spring already. So, hey, listen, Roy, what brings us together today? What are we going to be discussing?
yeah, so I mean, we have a very cool episode that we're going to be talking about. This episode goes back to being the ninth episode of the series, and it's really the ITC summary. I'm going to summarize the summary. It's about a mysterious force that is going through Alpha and really putting the chill on many individuals. And one man has been designated the carrier of this force. And of course, we are talking about the classic 1974 episode, Force of Life.
Wow, wow. Okay, it sounds like COVID.
Don't even go there with that. I don't even want to talk about COVID.
All right, well, I can't wait. Let's dive into that wonderful opening.
Let's do it. Wow, that always just like blows me away. Again, thank you, Catherine Bujold. What an amazing opening.
Good way to start an episode.
Absolutely.
For sure, for sure. Listen, we're welcomed by a couple of really, really good friends and wonderful fans, Mr. Bob Mack and Mr. Stephen Redder. It's not Reader, it's Redder, right? Oh, did we lose Stephen?
Nope.
I'm here. We got
Oh,
a
there he
bunch
is.
of
A little bit of a delay.
you all kind of locked up on me, but hi, how you guys doing?
Okay, you're there. Okay.
Nope. I think Stephen was kind of setting us up for what actually happens within maybe the fourth minute of Force of Life. So you know what, Stephen, that was a great recreation of that moment. And as we know, after the opening credits, everything comes back, and Koenig is even saying, what was I saying? So great job, Stephen.
Come in, main mission. Come in, main mission.
Folks out there viewing, don't ask us to do that again because the logistics of setting that up behind the scenes were enormous.
All of our computers are sparking as we're talking, and you can see the minutia coming out of our mouths as we're trying to get through it. And I'm probably
Okay. We'll call it the minutia.
Anyway. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's good to
This is
see you.
Warren.
Since we haven't seen
Welcome, and listen, we'll take a moment halfway through, guys, and get a little bit on each one of you. But I just want to say, right out of the gates here, that for anybody that was in London last September, what has it been, 3 months now?
3 months. Yeah.
for as much as I'm two left feet overall, Stephen and Bob were my two right feet. And they were there, and Roy, of course, and everybody else. But Stephen and Bob, in particular, behind the scenes, were they really stepped up to the plate, and I can't thank them enough for their help.
No, you guys did great.
Thanks, Warren. Delighted to be a part of your creation, Warren.
Thank you. Yes, and so listen, Force of Life, guys. Let's dive right in. Any early thoughts of seeing it initially back in the 70s?
Terrifying. I thought it was just terrifying. And, it's a little bit almost verging on Monster of the Week-ish type of episode, but in a very creative, spooky, mysterious way. I loved it, but I was terrified. Still one of my top 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, definitely. I just love the way it was filmed. I mean, it was just so eerie. And the David Tomlin did that too. I mean, I'm just such a big fan of this.
Yeah, it was very stylish, and thinking back to 1975, I remember. Do you guys remember the Dunris cards? And I think we've talked about it on the show before. And if I remember correctly, it is card number 33. And Stephen, you can check me on that. I'm going by memory here. I could be off. It's 33 or 35. And you see Zarf entering the nuclear generating area. And I remember in 1975 being in my room, and I was looking at, I'm laying in my bed and I'm looking straight ahead. And then there was the closet door. And I was thinking that was like the door to the nuclear generating area. And I was just like, it was so dark in there. And I was like, oh my God. And I had just seen the episode, and I was just almost like terrified because it was resonating. Because this was like a horror episode in every aspect. So well done by David Tomlin, whose work we were privileged to see. He did The Prisoner. He was a writer, a director, producer for The Prisoner. And then also, as a first AD, what an amazing career, what he did with Superman, Raiders of the Lost Ark movies. Just very, very talented. And sadly, he's no longer with us, but very stylish, as you guys were saying. And right from the onset, when everything happens in that teaser. And as John Kenneth Muir had said at the Breakaway Convention in 1999, as we were talking about it with Christopher last week, that Christopher Paulson, when everything turns upside down, you talk about Chekhov's gun in regards to what is going to be happening on Alpha in the next 48 minutes. It really was the perfect setup with that.
Yes. 100%. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was waiting for Stephen to confirm if it was card 33 or 35.
Yes. But I was going to say, Roy, it's a testament to, I mean, I had that card set too, and I was 5 or 6 years old. And I would stare and study at each one of those cards, and that one in particular sticks in my mind because it was such an amazing set. Oh my God, like that nuclear generating area was the thing of dreams. It really was, and it was incredible. It gave such a size and scale, even on a tiny little trading card.
Absolutely,
it was really amazing. Yeah. Stephen, how we doing?
And it's not 33, and I'm having trouble finding it.
No, my backup was 35.
What was it? Bassett? Bassett cards. They withdrew that image of Ian McShane, the burnt image of him. They pulled it from the card set.
I thought it was an image of Troubled Spirit.
Oh.
Mateo's Ghosts.
That's it. Oh, here it is. Yep. You're right. I was wrong.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't know why.
But no, I couldn't find it.
That's okay.
He's still looking. Okay. I'm going to stick with 33 or 35 though. It's in the 30s there. So that was the Dunris card. So in fact, if you turn that over, or if they actually sold them as sheets, and it had the eagle, coming off the pad, and it said Space 1999.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and honestly, I think that was actually my very first collectible of any kind. Was buying a pack of those cards with the gum inside, and I've been hooked ever since.
There, yeah,
You got
that's
the card?
what
Yeah,
number is it?
35.
Yes.
35.
There we go. Wow.
Yeah, like look
Roy wins a prize.
you get to
Yeah,
take
but I'm
next week
slipping
off.
though. I thought it was 33 at first, so I'm slipping there, guys.
Yeah, well, just remember numbers. That's amazing.
No, you know what, and again, I might have been a little younger at 5 or 6 years of age watching this for the first time, but I totally agree with Bob. It was very frightening at the time. It was one of those shock endings like Death's Other Dominion, things like that year one was known for. Very, very adult oriented. Considering it was essentially marketed as a kid show, right? In a lot of respects, right? So yeah, no, and that on top of the fact that I think myself personally, I think I remember visually a lot of the episodes because I was very, very young when I saw them the first time, and there was things about them that I'd forgotten about until I saw them much, much later in the 80s, and Force of Life being one of them. I remember just the visual aesthetic more than anything. I forgot about the wonderful cinematography and until I saw it later on in the 80s. I'd forgotten about all the really weird music cues used throughout that were very unique to this episode, right? But yeah, I mean, the whole package was just an incredible final product.
Yeah, the whole package, including the acting. I mean, Ian McShane was just brilliant. And I'm sure that's the first thing I recall ever seeing Ian McShane in.
Yes.
At that point in time anyway, but he went on to have such a terrific career, but he was just brilliant. And it was a shame, I thought at the time, that he obviously wasn't going to be returning to future episodes after that, because he was just terrific.
Yeah, he was only about 32 years old when he did this, and fans of Ian McShane would know him from Lovejoy, which would be on in the 80s, and then of course then he did the other show, which was what was it, Deadwood? I think that was in the 2000s. So, and then he did a lot of things in between that. He was doing a lot of things in the US, specifically in the 80s too. I think he actually even did a Columbo or a what was it, Miami Vice. He did one of those episodes. So he was definitely a working actor and a very, very talented actor.
And still is, even up until recently. He's been in the John Wick movies.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Just in the last 10
I remember being excited seeing him on Babylon 5 when he did that. I think it was one of the
I know. Oh, goodness, Stephen, boy, you're going to make me go off on a tangent again. And Roy's rolling his eyes already because he knows what I'm going to say. Roy's never seen Babylon 5, and I've tried every angle possible to get him to watch it, and I've been, I've even dropped all the guest stars.
It's not that I don't want to watch it. It's just the whole time. And Warren's been hitting me with this, like you mentioned COVID before, since COVID. It's like,
yeah.
And I actually sat down to watch the pilot episode, and I did enjoy it, but it's just that to get engulfed into dedicate, it's like I wish I had the time to do that. And
it has to be my second favorite show after what we're talking about right now. I even have one of Bruce Boxleitner's costumes from that.
Wow,
really? That's amazing.
One second.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And you know what? And since we're off on a tangent, I'm gonna. You know what? When I was, look at that!
Very nice,
beautiful piece.
Badges and everything.
Yeah. So that must have been then. This is how much of a B5 nerd I am. That's season 2, because in season 3 they did the uniform change. Yeah.
You're a metal nerd. Yes.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, I just, something jogged in my mind, guys, talking about this. And literally, when I was watching Babylon 5 back in the 90s, it did, and tell me if I'm wrong, Stephen, or if you got the same sort of impression, but a lot of the episodes did really remind me of watching space. Just I don't know, there was just something about it. And if it was to do with the sets or what exactly, I couldn't put my finger on it, but there's just something about it that was reminiscent of space, and maybe that's why I dug it so much. And yourself,
that's why it's my top 2. There's my top 2 shows.
Yep. And if you needed another reason, Roy, to dive right in.
The list keeps growing and growing and growing.
Well, what I loved about this series was it was not just single episodes alone. There were bits and pieces all the way through that you saw 2 years later. It explained what was going on back then. I so wish Space 1999 could have done that.
The continuity,
with the unknown force. We could have had more of Commissioner Simmons. If it could have been episodic.
Exactly. It really did pave the way for a lot of, now we're really getting off track here, but it was one of the first scripted television dramas to incorporate arc storytelling, which is all the rage now, but it was so groundbreaking back then. When like Stephen, like you said, you see something that paid off from watching it 2 years previous, the mind just like you couldn't believe it, right? It's like, wow. And it was just so rewarding as a viewer.
But I'm going to bring that back to Space 1999 a little bit.
Sure.
Space 1999 that was my no, but in all seriousness, though, one thing that was consistent with 1999 was the reference of the moon being blown out of the Earth's orbit, which obviously set the pace. But in different episodes, it would be referenced, as in Collision Course, when, Koenig is having the conversation with Ara. Also in War Games, when he's talking with the aliens, how they've survived. So it was interesting that they actually did kind of keep that sort of connection to it. And of course, that was the premise of the whole show. So, of course, to go back to it. But many episodes of television shows, to your point, they wouldn't even do any type of references. I remember getting excited watching, and I'm going to do a Star Trek reference right now, watching the original series Star Trek, 3rd season episode, That Which Survives, the one with Lee Merriweather. And Kirk is on the planet with Diamato, McCoy, and Sulu. And there's a reference to the planet about the rocks, because they talk about Janus 6, about the rocks being alive, and Sulu makes the reference to that episode, which is The Devil in the Dark. And I thought, oh, how cool is that they actually referenced something from from a different episode. And that was just something that really wasn't done.
Yeah.
To your point, Babylon 5 set the pace. Star Trek The Next Generation started doing it. And then the shows, as they progressed, they started doing it. But of course, just like everything
after Babylon 5 did. Sorry.
Just like everything else, oversaturation. You go from one point where they just did it, they never did it, then they touched upon it, and now it's like, oh, you know what, if you don't have a story arc, it's not going to happen. It's like now it's like to have an episodic episode is like, wow, we're just a standalone episode. And of course I'm referencing Strange New Worlds.
And you know what? And sorry to cut you off, Roy, but this is why I was so excited about the extra scenes in Breakaway, where Gorski references Lee Russell.
Yep.
That blew my mind, because if space would have carried on that theme of and it doesn't have to be like cliffhanger endings every week, but those little nuggets, if they would have stuck with it, it could have been a very different series and remembered very differently today for different reasons. So I was very excited at the idea that they even had that concept in mind back in 73, 74.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes, though, recently anyway, and I don't disagree with any of your points, certainly where Babylon 5 is concerned, but at some point, I think it becomes fan service runs amok, right? Where all the writing and show production becomes dedicated to those things, and the creativity gets lost. And we're simply now recycling bits and pieces and cobbling it together and calling it a show, which fortunately didn't happen with either of the shows we're talking about. But one of the things I do love about this episode, Force of Life, is that it leaves a lot mysterious. It leaves a lot of things unanswered. Absolutely. And I think that was one of the beauties of season 1 in general. I know sometimes people will nitpick that these days and say, well, they don't ever explain this. But I like that. That to me, that's
the brilliance of the episode. I mean, it's like, right in the epilogue when Helena is with oh my goodness, I'm blanking out on her name. Oh my goodness, Eva. Sorry, Eva Zora.
Eva.
And they're talking about everything, And it's just like, she says, I don't understand. And then she just says, Eva, we're living in deep space. There are so many things we don't understand.
Mhm.
There is no explanation. I mean, Bergman is taking a stab at it, thinking maybe it's like the birth of a star, but they don't know. It's just
They
that
don't
this
know.
force came down. It chose Anton. It did its thing. It needed the energy. And then what happened was they thought it was going to go to the other nuclear generating areas potentially, and that was the big fear. And then what it did was it just left, and it
Yeah.
just, as quickly as it came, as quickly as it left, and it just was like, what the heck just happened here? And to your point, we don't know. And you know what? It's brilliant, because that's
Mhm.
what makes, that's the charm of these episodes, specifically in this. It is a horror episode, and it's like, why did this happen? It's like the anger that she's feeling, and the sadness and the remorse. There's no explanation. It's just that that's where they're at, and it's very daring to do something like that, and that's a risk that the show took. And credits to Johnny Byrne, because he wrote the screenplay for this, and it's definitely a home run on so many levels.
And I
like.
I was gonna say, I really like the part about that we're seeing secondary characters. We're seeing the life of the Alphans, waking up in bed, having to get through the routine. Shower. There was a shower scene in there.
That was amazing world building. That those scenes alone.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. And
And
listen,
I think
just
that was the first time we saw the solarium.
Yes.
They're off duty time. I said that last week. Is that I wish we would have gotten a lot more of that. Right? They were really small little moments, but it added so much to the depth of the characters and their life on Alpha.
Zarf makes the comment that he needs to get a breath of fresh air. And then, he even says we could all do with that on Alpha, and he goes, I'll just have to go for my walk down the corridor. It's like it brings the reality of their situation, what they're dealing with. But to your point, Stephen, about waking, the couple is waking up just like a regular couple, and the alarm's going off. And it's like, you know what? It's time for work. This is routine. This is part of their existence. This is their daily existence. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to go about their lives. To your point about the shower, it's kind of how we do things, on Earth, but now it's what's taking place on the moon. And they have become familiar. They've accepted it. And that's part of their daily, I'll say, chores or daily jobs. And it works very well. And it definitely does give the secondary characters a lot of
it did, and it also, as a 5 or a 10-year-old viewer, it made that world that much more believable.
Yes,
right. When you projected 25 years in the future, we could all see ourselves, living on the moon back then, and it was scenes like that just added to the overall depth here. And sorry, Roy, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all.
The thing, endings that I thought of.
When I usually do the shows, Sherry's always joking and say, is there a shower scene? And you know what? Space 1999 almost had a shower scene.
We didn't get to see the toilet, though. But that was
so close.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Hey, listen, Bob, to piggyback off what you said about the endings, and that's where backing up even further to this conversation of what space could have been from a structural standpoint versus what it was. I think year one, and again, this is going to obviously bring up somewhat of a debate, but year one, although they were basically bottle episodes, they were more episodic in not giving you that ending. Right. That's what, and leaving it open-ended, that's what set it apart for its time. Right. Yeah. Because when you look at year two, they were bottle episodes, a lot of them. But what did they have at the end? They had the epilogue with the crew standing around the bridge of the Enterprise laughing about something. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's a completely different feel. Right.
Yeah.
Very different. And, I think you guys make some great points. There's this sort of banality of everyday life, right? The existence that we all have in not living on Moonbase Alpha, but there's a routine. There's a boredom to life, which they express. But then to contrast that with this alien force, mysterious, I think just highlights the terror and the mystery of it. And I think it's more realistic. This is how an alien encounter really should work. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't be humanoids with British accents, every one of them, that we're speaking to in English. There should be an inability to communicate. And that's very much what's happening here. The alien isn't communicating with the Alphans or vice versa because they can't. They don't have a common language. They don't have an understanding to that level. And I think Force of Life, in many ways, is more realistic than some of the episodes in that regard.
That's a brilliant point, Bob. And it's going outside of the box because there's almost an arrogance as human beings. I mean, even with storytelling, that we think that if we go out into space, we're going to meet, something that's going to be along the same lines of ourselves. Maybe it's not going to look the same, but it's not going to act the same. It's not going to communicate the same way, but it's going to be a being, similar to ourselves, a Homo sapien, so to speak. And that's just not how it potentially can be. I mean, Dragon's Domain is another brilliant example of it, which we'll talk about later in the series, that, we're not thinking in terms of that. It's like the furthest thing from our minds. So what a great way to encounter something so alien, because this is just something that's, who would have thought, like, an energy source penetrating into you, wanting to consume all the energy and then pretty much live and sustain itself off of you if it's not getting the energy, and then essentially causing you to do things that you don't want to do. I mean, even Zarf was trying to hold on even in that one scene because he was begging Eva. Well, it started when they were in the quarters, and he's just like, he keeps telling her, don't come any nearer because of what happened with Dominic. So there's that. And then what happens is, later on, when he's just determined to get to the generating area, he's trying to do everything he can not to attack her because that's his wife and he loves her and he doesn't want anything to happen. And he even says it will kill you. And he's trying to ward her off. And then there was that change where it didn't matter who she was, and he was going for it. And it was because of Alan that, saved her and pulled her away for that moment. And then he kind of shifted, because if you think about it, he could have still attacked both Eva and Alan, but it was enough for him to, keep on going. It's brilliant writing.
And shades of this is your connection to Bringers of Wonder. We were talking about this earlier, but a lot of similarities there with their intention. And again, even in Bringers of Wonder, you don't have a lot of answers, right? It was one of the so very similar in that respect to this episode. That's it. That's all. I've talked too much. I've said already. I'm shutting up. So you guys go ahead.
There's just
one of the things that's interesting about this episode too is that we saw no eagles in it. This is not one of those. There was no eagle scenes. One of my favorite shots is what's right behind you, Warren, is the radar dish. I thought that was so beautiful.
Yeah.
But this was all self-contained on the base itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which just goes to show you, as a bottle, as they would call them on Star Trek at the time, and as a bottle episode, it really works well. From a production standpoint, too, going back, Guardian of Peri was the episode that was filmed prior to this episode. So what they were doing is they were taking some budgetary constraints with that because they had spent a lot of money on the visual effects. In fact, at one point, they were going to have fewer visual effects for this episode than they actually did, but then they wound up adding a few. Interesting to note, we do see some recycled scenes from Breakaway that is in this episode when the explosion of the nuclear generating area occurs, that we see crew personnel being thrown certain ways, one going through the window, just being tousled about. I mean, it's appropriate, and if really, we've watched the episodes how many zillions of times, so we know these episodes forward, backwards, up and left and right and all over. So, we'll pick that up. The common viewer, maybe not so much, but.
Uh-oh, it looks like Steven got sucked into the black sun there.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I'm having bad internet connection.
No worries. There you are.
It's all right. It's all right.
Sorry, I'm back.
But no, for an episode that did not exhibit the Eagles, and this wasn't really done. I think this episode, The Troubled Spirit, in the first season, were the only two that I can think of off the top of my head. And we didn't go to an alien planet, so it was all Moonbase Alpha. And as you were saying earlier too, Warren, about the nuclear generating area, what a fantastic set that was. I mean, it was incredible. Another
It really was. It was really a shame, and I mean, obviously, I think they took a step back after Force of Life and said, "This is incredible. We don't want to tear it down yet," and that's why it ended up in Alpha Child.
Well, what happened was, yeah, they actually, this episode was filming in was the latter part of May into the earlier part of June, but then production had actually stopped. They stopped production for about 3 weeks because Martin Landau and Barbara Bain had it worked into their contract for a holiday. So what they did was they toured different parts of Europe, and production had ceased for about 3 weeks. And then what happened was they came back on I believe the 1st of July until the 5th of July. Filming ended. Filming ended that week, essentially filming a lot of the things that were taking place at the nuclear generating area. And then when filming ended in the morning for Force of Life, in the afternoon, they actually shot the nuclear generating scenes that were done in Alpha Child, because the 2 episodes were filmed back to back.
Mm.
So
And was that originally Main Mission redressed?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've had this debate with several people over the years. And listen, I'm no expert, and I'm certainly not a design guru by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, all you have to do, this is in my mind anyway, is take a look at the number of, when you look at the back wall of the nuclear generating area, like that Donruss card, all you have to do is count the number of 4x8 panels you see going upwards, right? Or from side to side. And it's pretty clear that this ain't Main Mission, guys. It's vastly larger than Main Mission.
I would agree with you, Warren. I did not think this was a redress set either. I think that's a great question, Stephen, though.
Yes.
But my answer to that, and I actually never even stopped to think about it, but my immediate response would have been no, it is not. But I don't.
And a lot of people swear by it.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe that urban myth and legend has been so predominant the last few years, because it's pretty obvious to me.
That's why I brought it up too, because I think so. I mean, it was a big set, which is great, and I wish we had more of those.
But, yeah. But you know, and Stephen, I just put it in relation to the 4x8 panels. But even behind you, and you and I both own one of the smaller 1x2 panels. Move your head, and people will be able to see your year 2 panel that's blinking there, right?
Sorry, I was probably cutting out there. You're talking about the.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
That's great.
Have you got yours working yet?
I did restore it, but I like the way you did the lights a little better. And Jim over in the UK has been restoring them, and yours is by far the most, what I'll call, accurate, because of the way they blink just so slowly and casually. Mine has a little more of a Christmas bulb effect, where it's just on or off, and some of them are on and some of them are off. But that's the very, very nice work behind us there. Yeah,
I bought bulbs that are flashing bulbs.
Yes.
That's what I put in there.
Yes. That would be a quick and easy change. I'll consider that.
No,
I'll send you what I bought. I'll give you a link.
Okay. That'd be great. So listen, we're about halfway, guys, and thanks for your time again. But why don't you give everybody out there just a little rundown on each of you, Stephen and Bob, and your association affiliations with Space 1999 and fandom down through the years.
Well, I'll jump in. I've been a fan since the beginning. I remember seeing Martin and Barbara doing a promo on television for the upcoming season premiere of Space 1999, the first series, and I knew them from Mission Impossible, so I was excited. Became a big fan of the show, like we all obviously did. But sad to say, I grew up in Ohio, and the very first Space 1999 convention was in Columbus, Ohio, and I was unfortunately completely unaware of it. Or I could have been there with Jerry Anderson, Barry Gray, Martin, David Prowse, I think, might have been there.
Yeah.
I missed that, and I didn't get to my first convention until 2019 in Bethlehem, kind of Roy's stomping grounds, and what an incredible experience that was. Just amazing. And of course, when there was some discussion about having a London convention, I had to do that. And I'm just thrilled to have been there in London in September of 2024. The thing that really stands out to me, though, it's been a thrill to meet some of the actors, some of the creative people behind the show. But I continue to be amazed at the fans. Unbelievable people from really sort of all walks of life. But gosh, the people I met both in Bethlehem and in London, it's well worth spending time with you and those people, all of those people, even aside from the show. That alone is an amazing experience. Some of the conversations and experiences I had just with fans are make all of this well worthwhile.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said, Bob. Yeah, when you think about it, and we've talked about this before, for a show that was literally on for 2 seasons, 48 episodes, and to think the impact it had on so many people, especially worldwide, and affecting them in very similar ways and in different ways. And the fact that they can unite at different points and have been doing so since 1978 through conventions, it's pretty amazing. And then the fact that the different actors at different times have been a part of that. I mean, that's a testament to everything as well too. So it's very special, and it really has resonated, and it's pretty cool to think. One of the things that I always like to say is, Barry Morris, God rest his soul, when he would be there at the conventions for the very first time and he'd greet the fans, everybody's like wanting to take pictures, and he'd have his camera out and he'd be taking pictures of everybody as well too, because that's the type of person he was. So, it's very, very special.
Yeah, awesome. And Stephen might have some interesting takes on that, because actually, Stephen, you've been involved in conventions virtually the whole time. You were at the early cons. You were at a couple in the middle there, and of course the more recent ones. Any insights on how things have changed or how things have stayed the same?
Well, I was also from Ohio. I happened to live in Dayton, so I got to go. I was found out about the convention through Starlog, and was able to get to that very first convention. It was fantastic. There's Jerry and Martin, and yes, even Prentice was there, and so many to arrive for that was just amazing. And it had only been about a year or two since the series had ended. It was called Save 1999. They were trying to get it back into production. Martin's like, yeah, it's not going to happen, everyone, but thank you. So I did make it to the next 3 conventions after that: Pittsburgh, back in Columbus, Atlanta, Georgia, and then I think the next one was in Springfield or something like that. And that I didn't get to meet Barry. That was my one regret, that I never got to meet Barry. Same with Xena. I never got to meet her either. But the great part these years later is I got to meet Catherine. It was the first time I ever got to meet her and get her autograph. And it was great. It was fantastic. And to see all those people back again. Unfortunately, Prentice couldn't make it this time. But the thing that is consistent through all that is the fans. I agree with Bob 100%. The fans are just incredible. And then, I just forgot her name, who just passed away.
Rosie.
Rosie. Thank you, Rosie. She was there from the beginning too, and I didn't get to talk with her much outside of the convention, but she was a fantastic person, just overall. Yeah, it's just great, the fans and how much they love it, and how much the cast and crew loved us. They were so and we saw that in London, especially.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you guys were both talking about, Columbus, and Bob, I really wish you would have made it, because to come full circle to your appearance in London, you had a very special lunch with a particular celebrity, and he would have been at that first convention as well.
Well, I had just an incredible experience to have lunch, and you're referring to Clifton, I'm sure.
Yes.
Clifton Jones, and you had approached me that late morning, early afternoon, and said, boy, can you hang with Clifton for a little bit? And I'm like, yeah, could I hang with Clifton Jones for a little bit? Yeah, I think I could see my way clear to doing that. And what an amazing experience to meet him. As we talked about earlier, Kano was such a big influence, I think, on all of us. And I mean, there's so many beloved characters. I almost hate to single one out, but he was different. I think Kano was different. Clifton was a little different as a character. And to sit there and eat lunch with him, and I'll recount this as quickly as I can. There was a fan sitting a table over from us. And at one point, it's just me and Clifton and another fan. And Clifton saw him, remembered having spoken to him, I think, the previous day. And he waved him over and he said, "Oh, join us, join us." And so this gentleman comes over and sits down. And he literally is a leader of a project right now where they're building the most powerful laser on the planet.
Wow.
It's in the United Kingdom. And he's explaining this to us, and Clifton is fascinated by it. And what an amazing sort of turnaround. Here was David Kano, who in 1975 was our computer technology guru. But in some sense, the tables have turned, and now Clifton is asking him all of these questions about the laser, what it will be used for, the research involved in it. And here's an extremely brilliant, accomplished man, the fan, and I'll remember his name here in a moment. Gosh, I apologize. But explaining this, and he, at the same time, is like a little kid excited to be sitting there having lunch with Clifton Jones.
Sure. Yeah.
It was just an amazing thing to see that and to be a part of that. And I'm sure there are dozens or hundreds of stories like that. And I know so many of the other fans I met similarly have stories of Space 1999 being a motivator and a driver for them at some point to later accomplish amazing things in life.
Yeah, and the actors are so humbled when they hear stories like that, because to know that you've really impacted so many lives on so many levels. I mean, just impacting one person, but when you hear these stories that have taken place, I mean, Nick Tate has talked about people wanting to become pilots as a result of, Alan Carter, and, or with Barbara Bain wanting to become a doctor, from Dr. Helena Russell, and just going, into the medical field. It's really quite an honor, to know this and to hear this, and the respect level is there. And I think to your point too, what you were saying about that, Bob, is, you have an adult that's very accomplished, very brilliant. And then there's that child coming out in them just because they're thinking back, they're going back to their, to their youth, and how they were influenced by this individual who was a role model, almost like a hero. And then they're not only having the opportunity to, to talk with them, but eat lunch with them. I mean, it's pretty impressive. And again, at the end of the day, we are all human beings, and we all have our professions that we do. But it's really nice when you hear how they welcome the stories and welcome the individuals, and the respect that is garnered through everyone together. And it is a uniformity that really is very consistent within Space 1999 fandom, and it's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and that was, for me, when I started college, it was computer science major because of Kano, and now I head up an IT department. So
wow, yeah,
pretty
amazing.
It was very much the fact, and then I got into film and television production also because of Space 1999. So
amazing.
And I even got down to making my own costumes. I made the Space 1999 spacesuits. I collect a lot of stuff. I even got one of the laser rifles.
Wow.
Oh, very cool.
It's incredible.
You've got the armor-piercing laser. You got the cool one.
Yes. This is made.
I'm not cool because I don't know the difference between the three. That's amazing,
Shout
Stephen.
out to Felix, who made this for me. It was fantastic. Felix
Incredible.
Rodriguez.
Well done, well done. Well, I think, guys, that is definitely the common denominator. Is that for all these years and decades later, it's truly been the fans and the bonds that have formed every time we've gotten together at conventions, and that's stuck, right? I mean, there's nothing that's ever going to change that fact. I mean, I'm sorry, but you guys are stuck with me for the rest of my life. You're going to have to know me and deal with me. I'm sorry. But no, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah,
It really, really is.
Force of Life. I have one other question about Force of Life really quickly here now. And this is, just talking about professionalism in general. And that's quite simply, why did Helena, after, she secured Zoroff in the little room there in medical, and she's having a conversation with John saying, don't worry, I'm not going in there. And he's, unless I'm confused, but long story short, why did she sit down with her back turned to him so that she couldn't see when the little light went out?
yeah, I never understood that. Yeah.
That was the whole purpose of having the light.
Why did you do that?
She even pointed it out right before Koenig left. She's like, yeah, if the light goes out, I'll know.
Yeah.
Back there.
I mean, on the flip side, she never expected him to get out of the restraints. And then the fact that he was able to use all of his will and power, his last energy, so to speak, to push that door open, that was not what she was expecting. But the other thing is, why was she working in the dark too, right? But again, that's setting the mood for the tone for the scene.
It added to the atmosphere for sure. Yeah, it was
all aesthetics. But no, great point though, Warren.
but no, there's nothing because I mean, yeah, it was things like that, and then the following, wasn't it shortly after that where he's chasing the orderly down the hall, right? With the fisheye lens, and it's sort of slow motion, and it is just on every level brilliantly done.
What I didn't understand is, why didn't those guys hold the door for her?
Why didn't she scream out? Exactly.
Yeah. Why didn't she scream?
She was silenced with fear. So I can possibly get it, but they were within an earshot where she could have called to them. I mean, again, it's dramatic writing, but still, every time you watch that scene, it's almost like you want her to get to those guys to get into the travel tube, and then the doors will close, and then it'll be on its way. But
the way it was shot and that slow motion and that fisheye, as you said, it was terrifying. Even as a kid, it was terrifying to me that what she was going through.
The direction of David Tomlin, he brilliant, just brilliant throughout the entire episode. When Dominic dies, I mean, there's the way he's laying on the ground where the camera's positioned, and then Zoroff turns and he's running for the doors of the nuclear generating area. The way that whole shot is set up, I mean, it's brilliant.
Yes.
Also, even in the solarium, I mean, which was kind of...
I was just going to mention the solarium.
Yeah.
In fact, that actress is that played Jane, I think her name was Eva Rubersteiner. She was actually a Bond actress, and she was in 3 of the James Bond movies. She's with Tanya, and she has her leg up in a certain position, and the camera is actually shooting through her leg, and then the door is open, and then you see Zoroff coming into the solarium. It was just a brilliant shot the way they did it.
Beautiful, yeah, that was a great shot.
Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that is very Bond-esque, sort of an opening credits Bond concept. Yeah,
no, for sure. I was going to address now the solarium. I believe was a redress of Koenig's office.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I've always wondered, as Zoroff becomes burnt and charred, is it still Ian McShane underneath all of that?
I was going to ask you guys that. I have not seen any documentation saying it was or was not, but I have to wonder if it was.
It almost looks like front work, right?
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was either. I've often wondered that myself, but I was like, no, I don't think that's him. He seems thinner, of course, he's been charred, but this doesn't seem the same body. Yeah. Sorry,
you can't tell by the eyes because they're glowing. He's got the Gary
Mhm.
Mitchell eyes going on full force there, and you have to wonder though, how come in all the other episodes we've seen a laser shooting somebody that's never done? I guess Alan may have put it on a special setting, we could say, just because he wanted to make sure that he was taken out. I guess we could use that. But for a laser beam to do what it did, that's the only time we see a laser on kill actually frying somebody to the char like that.
And with him still moving afterwards, that scene of him opening the door,
Yeah,
that was just again scary, incredible, and yeah, that was just a brilliant episode. That's why I'm top 5. It's one of my top 5 favorites.
yeah.
What's funny, Stephen, when we were setting this up, you said that you had thoughts initially after we started this podcast that if you were to ever come on, you'd prefer Force of Life for sure. Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm having a little internet connection. What did you say?
I know it's either that or you're just sick of answering me. I'm not sure.
It's my fault. I'm in a.
That's okay. I was saying that you'd said to me earlier this week that it was your preference to actually come on for this episode. We just sort of set things up by fluke here, but you had everything
One
ready
day
to go.
ago, you were like,
Oh yeah, that's about that's the way we work.
I'm like, well, if there was an episode, this is the one I wanted to do. So yeah, this is great.
And thank you guys again, because it's tougher around the holidays. I'm sure you can appreciate that, just to find people and schedule wise get everything to work and click right. So I'm really pleased you guys both made it for today.
Yeah, we really appreciate that.
Speaking of holidays, I'm a little.
And I'm looking forward to
that no one's wearing their festive Space 1999 Christmas sweater,
except for you, Bob.
except for me.
Did you wear that at the convention? I thought no.
I did. I wore it to dinner, the sort of formal dinner, and I sat near Anton that evening, and I'm not sure that he thought it was such a great wardrobe choice, but I was proud to wear it nonetheless.
Christmas in
Anton
September.
is always well dressed, and this may have. I'm sure it's something Anton would not wear.
Oh, that's funny, because Anton was certainly the sharpest dressed man there.
He was. Yeah.
Like hands down, he could have been walking the red carpet.
He was, but it was a huge thrill to have dinner with him. I do want to jump in and say Elder Crespo was the fan that I was thinking of with Clifton, and if Elder is out there, huge shout out to you. What a wonderful experience it was to have lunch with you that day. Incredible work that he's doing.
Elder's incredible. He reached out to me just before London, just to touch base, and he referenced something going back to Peterborough in 2014 when I met him, and it took me a second, but yeah, he had a very sharp memory on even down to what we discussed 10 years ago. So yeah, great guy.
Amazing.
Very nice. Oh well, one thing we didn't touch upon, Gay Hamilton, as far as playing Eva Zorf. Any thoughts about her? I thought she did a really great job with her performance.
Oh
Tough
yeah,
role.
I mean, but just I mean both of them, because I mean, when we think of Ian McShane, we think of Ian McShane, the movie star now, but I mean, this would have been very early in his career, and the two of them, for being, call it what you will, I mean, probably bit players at the time, they both sunk their teeth into those roles, and including Gay. Yeah, I mean, they really played well off each other in those scenes, and again, it made it. I mean, they were very believable in those roles.
Great chemistry, and really sold the moments that they were together, and the sorrow loss.
And I felt so sorry for her at the end. I mean, she lost her husband. I mean, she lost. It was a very sad ending for that. And what's next for her?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a case where, I mean, it would have been interesting to see a character like that show up on a later episode, just to see what she's been up to, and a somewhat of a familiar face, and that sort of in your universe continuity would have been nice, a little bit.
Yeah, they were definitely yin and yang, I think, to a degree. I mean, I think, Roy, you mentioned earlier about how Ian McShane is kind of restraining himself. He doesn't want to injure or hurt her,
Right.
but he can't control himself completely either. Right. And she was very much revolving around that. And you do see that, I think, sometimes when there's one actor really putting out a very strong performance, that it lifts the other actors around them up. And I can't wonder if they didn't lift each other up.
Great point, because you're picking up the chemistry from one another, and it helps you to rise to the moment, especially when you're and I've done community theater, which is nothing by comparison, but just being on stage when you're with somebody, if somebody's really feeding you that energy and you're getting you have the dialogue down and you're in that moment, it really, really works. I'm going to digress from Space 1999 for a moment, and I'm sure there's other moments in 1999 we could talk about where that happens. But look at William Shatner and Joan Collins in The City on the Edge of Forever. I mean, you talk about the chemistry really working well with two actors there in their scenes. I mean, it really hits home, where it's that intensity and you really buy into it. So no, that's an excellent point, Bob, in regards to that. And there are definitely moments in Space 1999 that where it occurs, but
well, I was thinking of the scene with the heat being cranked up, the interaction between the two of them. It was like, why is it so? Oh, don't touch it. And the way they interacted was just kind of how like a couple would interact.
It was very natural. Exactly, Stephen. Yeah. Very natural.
They were like bickering, the tension you have in a relationship. Yeah. You saw that there.
Yeah. But fundamentally, the thing that was portrayed so well is that they were in a loving, compassionate relationship. And what's the basis of a loving, compassionate relationship? Touch. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it was her instinct to want to try and touch him. A rub on the shoulder, anything at all, physical contact, and so that's what really played into that dynamic so well, I think.
No, that's a great point, Warren, because she tries to get close to him, and then he keeps warding her off, and then even when he kind of like lets his guard down a little bit, she goes in, and then he's like, he's like, "Don't come any nearer. You've got to stay away." And he says he's not well. So it's.
Yeah, the writing was there, but boy, it takes the actors to flesh it out and get it on screen, right? And a director to let it happen and facilitate it.
You have to have all the components working together. It's a team effort, and that's a brilliant point. And this is a perfect example of everything coming together to make an exceptional episode, which it really was. Definitely a fan favorite. Definitely in my top 10. And it's so hard too with the first season because there were so many excellent episodes. But this definitely rates. It's definitely in that top 10 for me personally.
And those sets, I mean, the sets overall just incredible in the series.
Yeah.
To pull this kind of thing off, a big set like this is just
Yeah. Keith Wilson was brilliant.
But you know what? I just pulled up a photo, guys, of that famous set, and it's like even the small little details where behind the double red doors you see the elfin hallway.
Yeah.
It's not like this was just a cardboard box cutout. This was all planned and thought out so well. It's just amazing.
And to see those nuclear waste domes on the wall there too, reuse of that makes sense. It fits perfect there.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe in real nuclear fission, it's not quite right, but but it was beautiful. Yeah, and that door again, that big door. Was that door used in the second season in the
Bringers of Wonder?
Yes. Was that the same door?
I think it was.
Yeah,
and I think one half of the door you can see in lambda factor painted silver.
My understanding is I'm thinking of the James Bond door.
Oh, Goldfinger. You're thinking of Goldfinger.
Yeah, that door is here in at a bank here in California.
Is it
Not
really?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I'm going to give my show a plug. We actually just covered last night Goldfinger, the 60th anniversary. And believe it or not, and I didn't even realize this was just dumb fate. Goldfinger actually premiered in New York City December 21st, 1964, 60 years ago today.
Wow.
Oh,
It was
Wow.
released in the UK in September of 64, but when it came to the US, it was on this date, which is kind of incredible. Sorry, Warren,
I just
No,
watched it like a month ago myself.
it's okay. It's okay. And listen, on this show, Roy, you know full well that all roads lead to James Bond. So wasn't it? So just as an aside, guys, wasn't it also interesting to have met Catherine Shell's agent, if you'll recall, Anders Freyd, who was George Lazenby's agent as well, and very, very heavily involved in James Bond fandom.
Yes, heck of a nice guy too. Really, really nice guy.
And they were both in Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, another Bond connection with this episode, when Martin and Barbara were going on holiday after they had shot the first 2 weeks, and then what happened was into the latter part of June, where it was actually maybe it was a little later, but it was right around the time of this going on. They were actually setting up at Pinewood Studios for the filming of The Man with the Golden Gun in 1974. So it was in June of 74. So there's that whole connection. And then also Commissioner Dixon's office, which we'll talk about in Dragon's Domain, was M's office.
It was so obvious too. As soon as
Yeah.
you saw it, you're like, "Oh, that door with the
The
padded-
door,
Yeah.
padded door." Yes.
Yeah. Well, and that fits time-wise because Anders, after London, like within a week, was flying off somewhere to take part in the 50th anniversary of The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, it all times out. Yeah.
no, wonderful. Well, okay, listen, I think we've had a really good chat on this wonderful episode, guys. Anything else you want to add in real quick?
I want to. I can't wait for Los Angeles. I just want to say that.
Yeah, and we were just gonna, and you just read my mind, because usually, yeah, we've been getting into the habit of letting everybody know what's up and coming, of course, and you know, even this new podcast that we've taken on, it was sort of initially devised to lead into Los Angeles next year. So, hope you guys can make it. We do have a ticket drive on till the end of the month, so there's not too much time left, and we're running an early bird special for everybody out there for a 3-day pass for Los Angeles 1999. How much, guys?
1999.99.
$199.99.
Yeah.
Magic number.
It'll save you about $50 off that three-day weekend pass, guys. And for anybody out there, you can find out more details at www.space199950years. That's 50years.com. You can follow us on Facebook as well on the event page. And Roy, why don't you talk about your show?
Oh, thanks, Warren. Yeah, it's Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner. It's on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and on select Sundays. So last night we were just covering, and as I was saying, celebrating the 60th anniversary of Goldfinger. So we did that. I had Mike and Mary Beth from Sci-Fi Distilled on. We did a special crossover episode. The final episode of the show for Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner for the year is going to be not this Sunday, but next Sunday, which is going to be December 29th. That will be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ross has been really quite busy. He's my co-host. I've been friends with Ross going back to 1981. We reconnected during COVID. I hadn't seen him in 35 years. So we've been doing the show together for about 4.5 years now, which has been really great. But so not sure what we're going to discuss on the final episode, but that's going to be next Sunday. So if you can tune in, please do so. And if not, catch us on the rewind, because just go to the show's page. It's on Facebook as well as YouTube. And always make sure, if you haven't done so already, please to just like or follow. It's definitely helpful. So, and no charge for that. So it's very much appreciated.
Awesome.
Thanks for the plug, Warren. Appreciate
Oh
it.
yeah, no problem, no problem. Hey, listen, as far as the guest on next week's episode of Space 1999, this episode, we have no idea. So if anybody wants to come on, or as Stephen and Bob, maybe if you want to stick around, we can just roll this over and do the next episode.
What is the next episode?
It's episode number 10, Alpha Child.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right.
I think we do have somebody set up for that. So
Okay.
but thank you guys again. It's really
Thank you guys.
Catch you
Yeah,
guys.
it's been great seeing both of you. And I'm going to say, right, I had, for what Warren said, you guys were instrumental at the convention. So thank you for all your help. Everybody came together, but you guys really helped out behind the scenes, front of the scenes. So thank you for all that.
Thank you. It was great fun. And as I told you, Warren, I'm more than happy to head up the auction this next year.
Yeah, that's great. Stephen did a wonderful job in London, and he's already taken up the reins on gathering some items for Los Angeles next year. So thank you very much.
Well, I can't wait for Los Angeles myself. I'm looking forward to being back with everybody, and that's very, very exciting what's going on in Space 1999 world these days.
It is. It's just part of the family, Bob, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 100%.
And all the merchandise out there. I just can't believe they're making new merchandise like crazy.
It's amazing.
Incredible. There's been a ramp up of merchandise the last 25 years. It's just remarkable. It really is.
Yeah. And it's sad because I bought almost all of them and I don't know how I feel about it.
There's nothing sad about that.
Yeah.
We're all going to have some explaining to do.
And listen, hey, there's one other plug that I'm going to throw in real quick. I've been working on something here. We all have been for the last several months, but it's coming to a head, and it's just in the final stages of completion. And it's actually going to drop for any of the attendees from London. Plus, that includes celebrities. The digital con booklet is very, very close to being finished and finalized, and we're hoping to drop that on Christmas Day. So keep watching your emails, everybody. This is something that's designed for you. This won't be shared online or social media. This is for your just a special thank you to all of you from all of us who were there and supporting of the event. And I think it's going to be something pretty special. It's been expanded from about 20 pages to over 150 now. So tons of content and information in there. So be watching.
Very cool.
I can't look away.
Yeah, thank you for all your hard work on that, Warren, because you have been heading that project up. So, and it's it's a lot. I mean, I know there's a team effort that comprised of it.
And I'm going to give a quick shout out to Isabel and Jim Wood, and Isabel, of course, have been instrumental in compiling all the information. We couldn't have done that without their help as well. So,
not at all.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, listen, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you out there. What about a farewell today, Roy? Anything from Force of Life you can think of?
For now, I'm just going to say until tomorrow.
I have a mild suggestion after this conversation, and I'm going to paraphrase. We've been talking about how we all have gotten to know each other. Well, we're all aliens until we get to know one another.
There we go.
Yes.
So we've all made such great friendships getting to know each other. So
absolutely, well said.
Nice said. Well, very well said.
100%. Okay, well, listen, we'll wrap that up. We'll call that an episode. Wonderful. Thank you so much again, fellas.
Thank you, Warren. Thanks, Roy.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yep. Thank you, Warren and Roy and Bob. Good to see you all again.
Yeah, for sure. We'll catch everybody next week.
Okay.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye for now.